I'm Ginger. I am the middle daughter. This is Beth, the eldest daughter. We are so thankful that you are here because spending some time with my mother at the end, we went through all of our photo albums, we reviewed everything, and the sum of a person's life is often their experiences. And my mother did everything she wanted. And it was truly remarkable how many of you came from so many different walks of her life, from her time at Shaker, and then Wells, and then Cornell, and then out in Hamden, and her different reiterations in her life. And everywhere, as we're going to talk about, she sees life and she enjoyed it. And she enjoyed it mostly because of the friends that were part of it, the friends and the family. And I think the great testimony to her is how many are here today that were truly so special to her and that hopefully she touched as well. And so know that the extended family, the Reeds, the Morgans, the Hearns, are all extremely grateful for all the things that you've given us over the last couple months, years, in my mother's life. And we're just here to joyously celebrate that she lived the life that she would have wanted, and that she is giving us all great gifts and will never stop giving us the gifts of her passions and her enthusiasm. And Beth and I would like to tell you about a couple of those true passions that she had and how that filtered into our lives and our children's lives. So each of the grandchildren brought in a prop, and we're going to start with that she was just an excellent, my mom, Laurie, was an excellent athlete. No matter where she went or what she did it to the best of her heart. Her grandma, Semple, was actually a world champion ice skater. Her grandmother, or her parents, were both champion golfers. And then she built a sailboat with her father. She was on the swim team. She played field hockey at Shaker Heights on the team that went to states with some of the women here, so thank you. She then went on to Wells. She then moved, and every time she moved, we lived in 8 different homes growing up, she would pick up a new passion depending on what was local. When we lived in California, she joined paddle tennis. She'd never played paddle tennis, but she did it with great gusto. And she played softball and started a team, and then we moved to Manitowoc, and soccer was kind of not very good, and she started a whole league. And then we moved out to Moreland Hills, and she became a referee for soccer. So she just fully embraced everything around her. She loved walking her dogs, and that was probably in her later life her best form of exercise. But Beth is going to go into 2 specific sports that she adored above all others.
Because with me, it was horses. My mom loved horses from the very beginning. From the beginning, she actually worked as a kid so she could have riding lessons. She worked as a camp counselor and helped with the horses. And everywhere we moved, whether it was in California, we had horses down the side of the mountain in the pipe corral. Out at Green Ledge Farm was her dream home, and my dream home too, horses in the front yard. We, as a family, the girls, we fox hunted together in California, Ohio. We traveled with the hunting. We even dragged all our hunting gear to Ireland one year, and it was kind of freaky, icy cold weather, and we ended up hacking across country instead of hunting and had a wonderful time riding through ancient ruins. And I said that was God looking out for us because the inclement weather prevented us from suffering from the infamous Irish ditches and huge banks. So we all had a lovely time. But everywhere we went throughout life, we were enjoying horses and riding together as a family. And that's something that we've continued as a legacy that my mom left for us girls, because we enjoy riding. My daughters enjoy riding. My husband enjoys riding.
They have 23 horses, so they've upped it from my mom's 13.
Yeah, that's true. When my mom was around, we actually had to look after some other people's horses on our property, which actually every horse came with a headache. So now I just have my own horses, and it's lots of fun. So that was a fantastic legacy that she left. Our kids have gone to the National Interscholastic. I went to the National Intercollegiate Championships. Katie invented up through the CCI, International high level. The other sport that my mom and dad introduced us to as kids was skiing, and that was a passion and a skill that they helped us to develop and again share as a family, whether it was in Chardon Ski Club, Alpine Valley. Every year we went on family trips and had a great time. She would make sure we were out there at sunrise for first tracks, and we would ski all day long. Sometimes the groomers had to escort us down the hill at the end of the day, but we made sure we got our dad's money's worth out of those tickets. And that is a legacy that has lived on. You know, some of us are working in the ski patrol. Our kids have skied all around the world and have taught skiing. So that is a legacy which lives on thanks to our mother.
The other thing my mother was a great naturalist, a scientist, someone who loved just the nature and how God's creation was formed and named. I don't think any of us have ever walked outside and not had, at night, Laurie tell us every star that was up there, kind of like Simba in The Lion King. So every time we look up and we look at Orion or Cassiopeia, I can hear my mother's voice telling us, and also maybe some park rangers from when we traveled across the country, but Beth will talk about it later. She loved flowers. She had more lilies. She had just great gardens. She joined the garden club. She joined the junior league. And she also loved science. She actually wanted to be a doctor. I think in her day and age that was a little harder, so she went and taught science. And after that, she was a docent at the Holden Arboretum and just loved working with the maple syrup, working with the kids, working with the trees. And I think she's passed that down on to all of us. If you look at every girl in the family is going on and becoming a scientist, and we're waiting for the boys. They may as well. But my mom would be so proud of just that love of nature, that if there were a flower, she would tell you what it was, its botanical name. If there were a tree, she would tell you a little bit about it, maybe even its Indian lore. And so we will never look at anything around us in nature and not have that true passion. She also was a scholar. That same depth of knowledge went into everything that she did. My mother was very proud of her academic excellence at Wells, at Cornell, but then she was the person that just wanted to learn. She would take extra classes, she would read books. If you ever played Trivial Pursuit with her, other than about 2 people in this room, heaven help you, because she's the only person that could probably do it single-handedly and win on one turn. It was a little bit weird for some of us who don't have that gift, but there were always books. The funny thing, in later life, she could read the same Dick Francis book about 20 times and still think it was interesting, but we loved her for it. And then she went back and she got another degree. So when we grew up, and she was so proud because each of her children have secondary college degrees, masters, and now the grandchildren are going on for that. But she's just had so much learning and so much love, she wanted to go and become a counselor. So she went back to John Carroll. She got her master's in clinical counseling. And I think she did it somewhat for the education, but most for the outreach. She really wanted to touch people, help people, and be with them. So she started that business, which Little Red Briefcase is from. But anywhere you went, she would want to be part of it and want to learn with you. And that was just a great gift, because we will never stop reading the newspaper in the morning. I still get it in the hard form because every morning my mother woke up and read the newspaper and wanted to know what was happening in the world around her. And every evening, Walter Cronkite was her date. So those of you who can remember evening news, I'll never forget that that's her evening date.
Another thing that she absolutely loved and passed on to all of us was traveling. I said not only was she a traveler, she was an explorer and an adventurer. When we lived in California, every summer she would drive us in the station wagon with the dog and the tent across the country. We would stop, we went different routes every time, which there's plenty of routes.
Badlands.
We stopped at national parks and had the naturalists talk to us and learn and walk and hike. And she loved that. She eventually made it to all 50 states and many countries in every continent except for Antarctica. With the Morgan family, she did some super extreme adventures like hiking in the mountains and traversing waterfalls in New Zealand, whitewater rafting in Australia, zip lining in Costa Rica. The Alaska trip, which was the final one that she was instrumental in planning, we went with National Geographic. So you can imagine, out there every day, we were hiking and kayaking and listening to the naturalists and learning every day. She also loved traveling with the Ravi Zacharias ministries to many different countries, India, Kenya, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, England, where they have apologetics working, and that was near and dear to her heart. She traveled with country walkers in Ireland, in Switzerland, and in Belize. And all of her grandchildren and children love traveling and have continued to enjoy that passion that she'd given us.
My mother, as Roger mentioned, was a great hostess. Our house was always open. There was never a missionary who didn't need a place to stay that she wouldn't say, 3 months? Great, bring your family. And we had just the most wonderful people. We had an AFS student from Brazil for a year. We lived in Manitowoc at the time, and I think he thought he was going to Miami. But it was a wonderful experience. We had German exchange students. She sent us abroad to go live. It was just a love of her life that she believed. There's actually an inventory that you often can take in a church of your spiritual gifts. And she always thought that her spiritual gift was the counseling and the hostessing. So if she could open her heart, her home, her life, serve you with her hands, and feed you a meal, she felt complete. And she always had the time to do it in a lovely way. So I think that hospitality, hopefully you've all felt, but every time I think about it and bring out her, her crystal or her china, or just feel the love that she would have made in her special recipes. We don't have Texas sheet cake without thinking of her, or her special bundt cake. So make those joyously and know that she's looking down. And then lastly, my mother was a great Christian. My mother loved the Lord with all her heart and soul. It was a life journey that most started in her 30s, that we all got baptized when we were young at a church, and then rebaptized in our teens because we had evangelical love at that point and made a true decision, and that's what she did. She started church when she was young. Her parents would drop her off, and she wanted to go so badly that even though they might not have gone with her, she and her little sister were there through all the years. And then later in life, she led our family and my father on many different churches at each new location and each new love. And she taught precepts. She taught Bible study fellowship. As Roger mentioned, she was never going to not have done her research. We have more journals and we have more studies that she has done. Just that love of learning, but tied with wanting to be closer to her Lord. So while we don't look so sad, we're not sad, because we know that Laurie is where she would have wanted to be. I believe she's riding in heaven and looking down at us and rejoicing. So just know that my mother was a special person. You were all special people. And we appreciate her great gifts that will go on with us forever. And we thank you for the experiences that you've had with her. And that if you think when you're out looking at the stars or a flower of my mother, that would make us happy. Thank you.
It's not like me to stand up at a podium, but I've been told that it won't get on the video. And if I'm going to do this, I'm only doing it once. And I'm going to make it count. So I've got some tools that are really helpful for me. One, my whole life, my mom had the Bible. It wasn't just on a bookshelf. It was something very personal to her. And I'm grateful she lived what would in historical terms be a long life. For us, it was way too short. But she lived it so fully that I think in a few years, although my dad will certainly have a hole, we won't think we missed out on anything. And that's a real treasure. So this Bible is a King James Version. Forgive me, I've never used the King James Version. We've never been a people that were very formal, thankfully, in terms of that kind of high church stuff. By the time I came around, we were going to a Bible church, and we were just trying to figure out, what does God say? And what difference can he make if there is a God in our lives day to day when it really matters? So I'm going to share from Laurie. Okay, I'm not going to tell you what Paul thinks. I'm going to tell you what Laurie thought. And I'm going to use her own words. And it's pretty easy. When Laurie created a suggested memorial service that we found last week, detailed, you can take a look at the photocopy. So Mom, I'm sorry, I'm not sticking to your game plan, but I'm trying to respect it. The verses that you see in the bulletin are verses that followed the creation and are part of her plan, her life biblical plan that she wanted you people to know. She knew she was created by God. It refers to Job and things like that we're not going to go into. But I am going to read very quickly some of these verses from John, because this summarized what my mom believed, what she believed God revealed to us to know, what she believed was most important, and really what she based her life on. Her life was not based on being married to a successful man, having kids that are impressive, except for me. And her life is based on the fact that God loved her. She did not question that. It was an unconditional love, because she knew at times she wasn't lovely. And it was an unending love. And she is without a doubt with him. And she wanted you to know why she believes without a doubt that she's with him. John chapter 1. But as many as received him, to them he gave the power to become the children of God, even to them that believe in his name, who were born not of blood, not of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. It continues, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, Christ. And we beheld his glory, the glory of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. I added those because those became my life verses, and I learned that from my mom. I learned that God is pretty simple, really. He cared enough about us to reveal himself directly through Scripture, and he told us the truth. He didn't blow us smoke about how great we are, all that we could accomplish, or all we could do. You know, there's a lot of religions out there, and pretty much the rest boil down to try and do your best so that when you stand before God, you'll have been good enough. The Bible says really a completely different story. It says you'll never be good enough. It says only Christ was good enough. And if you trust in him and you know him and you let him do for you what you can't do for yourself, things will be all right, because you'll be his child and he takes care of his child. She was his child. She knew his truth. She was bold with truth. But she knew his grace. She was surrounded by his grace. She knew that she was saved by the grace of God. It wasn't a work that she did. It wasn't something she deserved. She never took pride that she was this as a Christian or that. She just knew that she was saved by his grace. In John chapter 3, the next point in her outline says that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have eternal life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. Everlasting in the King James. And it continues. A lot of people don't know this. It continues, and she put it in her outline. For God sent his Son into the world, not to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He that believeth in him is not condemned, it continues, but he that believeth in the name of the only begotten is saved. So she believed this. She believed that God's love was so extensive, so complete, so sovereign, that she could know for certain that she was in good hands. She was in her Father's hands. And they were strong hands, and they were personal hands. They touched her life in the darkest times. They carried her through the confusion. And they gave her a steady hand in life, which carried her to the end. She continued on with her outline in John chapter 14. Actually, there was chapter 11 there. Verses 25 and 26, which state, Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? I think think it's kind of cool that she picked a woman in the Bible here. The woman said unto Jesus, Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, who should come into the world. She resonated. She believed. She confessed the same simple confession. I need you, God. I love you, God. And I'm thankful for you, God. She continued on later in John with what are very famous passage, 14, 1 through 6, which states, and I'm not kidding, like it's all highlit, it's all written, there are ribbons going to, this is stuff she lived and breathed every day. She believed in spending time with God every day. And she tried to pass that on to us as children. It wasn't just something to belong to. It wasn't just something to do that others would know that you had values and you carried those out and you made a difference in people's lives. It was something to let saturate your soul, the deepest part, the hidden part.
Hello, my name is Bob Lind, and it's been a great joy to be with the Reed family on this day, and it's brought up many, many, many memories of Laurie. First and foremost, I just really respect her as a woman of God, actually a warrior, a mighty woman in God's army who was bold and shined brightly no matter where she was. I also respect her so much as a wife, a loving mother, just loved life. She was a very accomplished in so many different ways, and yet she wasn't stuck on herself. The Bible talks about being a drink offering and pouring herself out to others. She certainly did that. She poured herself out to others without any type of fanfare. It was just behind the scenes. Most people don't even know about it.
Amen.
She just was a great servant, but she also was so accomplished, and that's a very unusual combination. She could have become preoccupied with herself. The Bible says, think of others more highly than yourself. And all her motivation was always out of love, even though some people I don't think really understood that. She would never want to hurt anybody. And so I just am thankful for her. I was talking to Mary Lind the other day, and Mary Lind that Laurie gave her Polo, the horse. And so that was a great gift, and that is a reflection of Laurie. She was comfortable at the country club. She was comfortable in the city. She was not ashamed of the gospel. She was not afraid to share scripture. She was not afraid to share Jesus. She was a woman of action and just a mighty, mighty warrior. And she leaves all you, Dick, and the children and grandchildren, and me and Morris and others, a great legacy of how a person,
Kingdom woman.
Exactly, kingdom woman can shine brightly no matter what goes on. So I just thank God to have this chance to just speak a word to the family. And we'll continue praying for all of you,
Yes.
because I know you're going to carry on that legacy that your mother, that your wife left all of us.
Yeah, she was a real deal. Her name's Morris Easton. Good friend of Laurie, met her in 2001. Rather, she came up to me as like her assignment to help me in my life with my little girl. I was going through court battles, separation, divorce, if you can call it that, but it was a very dark period in my life where a lot of uncertainty was there, and I didn't know how to really deal with the court system. I had a biracial little girl, and the family was coming to take custody of my daughter. Laurie met me in church. She walked over to me and introduced herself, and that's how the relationship began. And she was in the courtrooms with me. We had dinner, spent time together, and you know, she invited me for counseling, never charged me. Always had open arms, and it's something when someone fight for you, but when they fight for your little girl, like I say, it's a different fight when we fighting by ourselves. I'm a fighter. I fought world champions, Boom Boom Mancini. I was the top 6 in the world here a few years ago, and what is happening is she taught me how to fight with my little girl. It's a different when you're fighting by yourself, but when you got to fight when your kids there, it's just a different fight to get them away from the enemy, you know. Once again, I just love her and really appreciate what all she done in my life. To this day, she's there. My little girl's with me now. Like I said, my little girl's losing her mom from cancer, but I go on and on. Laurie's an awesome woman.
Hello, my name is Jean Kamiab, and I first met Laurie back in I think the early 90s, when Karen Dingle invited me to come to her precepts class on John. And I felt very privileged because Karen told me how intellectual Laurie was. And so it was a nice in-depth discussion, and we had a wonderful mixture. We had a Jewish Christian girl in there that gave more in-depth from the Jewish standpoint as well. And so that was the first time that I really got to know Laurie. And after that, we had Bible studies on Revelation in Sunday school with Laurie giving in-depth exposition of that. And I guess the closest I got was with Stephen Ministry. We took retreats out in the country with her, and we just had really wonderful experiences with the Holy Spirit working through us for members of our own congregation that needed a fellow Christian to walk alongside them. And then it sort of morphed into a dinner and dialogue group, which we presently have, which we meet weekly, monthly rather, to have a nice sit-down dinner with candlelight and good homemade food, and then we disperse. Men go to the library and women stay in the dining area and have a discussion about how they can help each other and pray and work through some of the difficulties with caring for a person that is either sick or has gone through a major trauma and needs to, it's a support group basically. So that is, I would say, the ongoing part, that Laurie came every month with Dick, and he was great. He fed her, he had his arm around her, he always introduced her, reintroduced her to people, and it was just such a good example for all of us to see the love that he had for her. And so I'm going to miss her, and I hope that we have many more good dinner and dialogue discussion groups in the future with Dick, because he's a mainstay not only for that, but for Child Evangelism Fellowship and the Indian connection with Ravi especially. Laurie and Dick were very active in the beginning of Ravi Zacharias' ministry, and I have really appreciated that, the apologetics. In fact, I want to go to Georgia soon to take his course in apologetics. So, Laurie, thank you.
Well, I'm Sandy, and
I'm Gordon Gerber. We met Laurie back in 1963 or 4, Pilgrim Christian Church. They were living in the Chardon area, and we had just moved there, fresh out of college and fresh out of nurses training.
my first memory of Dick and Laurie was on their porch at their home in Hamden, sitting outside, and it was a warm evening, and Beth was just a toddler, and she and their dog, I can't remember his name, were sharing an ice cube, and that's my first memory of them. We shared many wonderful times together, playing bridge, and we visited them at their island in Canada when our children were very young. And
our last really good memories were probably when we were together with George and Sue at Mackinac in Michigan. And the two things that stuck out in my mind there was the fact that Laurie could take a shower completely in and out in 2.5 minutes. Done deal. And the second, the 75 mile an hour speed limit was far too slow, that she said, you know, on some of these roads you can really go 85 and 90 and no one bothers you. So that's my last recollections of Laurie when she was just a bubbly, very knowledgeable, lovely lady that we really love to be a part of her life.
I have a recipe that I got from Laurie. We were in a young couples group at church, and she prepared this Aunt Jane's stew, which I fix often for groups because it's something you can put in the oven and it cooks itself and you're ready to serve it over noodles. We even visited their home in California. They were not there, they were traveling, but we drove with their instructions just to see where they lived, high on a mountain.
So, wonderful memories, and she'll be missed.
Hi, I'm Diana Mapes Woodbridge, and I say Mapes because I go all the way back with Laurie Reed to Shaker Heights High School, actually Woodbury Junior High, and this is
Mary Baldwin Brandt. I'm another Shaker Bud, and we've had wonderful times with Laurie. She's come in and out of our lives for a lot of years, and most recently we've had fun getting together for dinners and sharing an old friendship and renewing it. And
along with Janet Holden and Fred. And
yes, and when we were in high school, we were part of the athletic group, and we played field hockey with Laurie, and in particular we had one time where we went as a team to the Poconos for a summer training time.
Run by this very elderly lady. Was it Applegate? Was that her name? Something like that. She was in her 80s, I think.
Yes,
and
she was.
Would run up and down the field, and it was amazing. But we had a wonderful time and fellowship on the bunk beds. I remember the bunk beds. We must have done a lot of stuff that I don't remember, but on the bunk beds.
That's right, and one of the things that as far as field hockey goes, is that Laurie was our goalie, and I happened to be a forward. I was center forward for a lot of years, and I would have to drive on to when we were in practice, I would drive on to Laurie, and I know I hit the hockey ball, and it really flew, and I don't know how she stood in there to.
But that was Laurie.
Yeah, that was Laurie. She was brave.
I played in the backcourt, and I didn't have to worry a bit because if it got past me, which it did, Laurie got it. So I think those are our memories, but mostly over the years we got together when kids were maybe here and then maybe here, and would come and go when they were in town and when they weren't in town. So we have recollections of the kids and the family going way back, and our treasure was the last several years that we would get together regularly, and Laurie and Dick were part of that, and that was very special. So our love to the family.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kinney DeHamel, and I've known Laurie since about 1978. I was a newly married, young Christian, met Laurie and Dick, and became close with Beth when she was in high school. We were youth leaders, took Beth to Colorado with us, and I was always very drawn to Laurie and Dick and the family, and Paul and Ginger as well. My story is a quick one, but it's the deepest one I could ever give. Laurie gave me one of the greatest gifts anyone has ever given me in my life. My dad, like her dad, was a builder and shaker. They were very similar kind of guys, Steve Semple and Jack DeHamel. My dad homesteaded an island in Georgian Bay in the South Channel in 1950 before I was born. I had my summers on that island like Laurie had hers at Obenzeal for her whole life. And my dad, when he sold his company in 1965, lost the privileges to go to that island any longer. So it had been 28 years since I had seen my beloved soul place, my little island. And Laurie found it on the map. She found it, and not only did she find it for me, but when we went to visit Obenzeel, she actually took the time to take me back to my dad's island, and I found it again. And it is still one of the kindest, dearest things anyone has ever done for me in my whole life. I will never forget her kindness for doing that for me, and she knew what it meant to me because she shared the love of that part of the world like I do. It is my soul place. So I just wanted to let Dick and the kids know that what she did for me is one of the greatest gifts that's ever been given to me in my life. And she was very kind to my girls and me, and my former husband, always supportive and kind to us and encouraging in my walk with the Lord. So bless you all, and thank you for letting me share my story, because it's very heartfelt, as you can tell. Thank you.
I'm Dave Reed, Dick's brother. I've known Laurie since her freshman year at Wells, I think, sometime in there, about 57 years. I thought that I knew reasonably well Laurie's abilities and her character. But after sitting through the service here, I realized I didn't know the half of it, actually, of her ability and her character. One incident comes to mind. It was up at the Obenzeel, the island, and it was our first visit there, and Laurie was going to send me off in the boat. I'd never driven a boat, and I was kind of apprehensive about it, but she told me a few things to do, and put the garbage on the boat, and pointed me toward the dump where I should drop it off, and sent me off. I was quite apprehensive, but she wasn't at all. I realized she was a lady of great ability, and she thought, well, other people are too, you know.
I'm Laurie Reed, Dave's wife and Laurie's sister-in-law, and we mostly saw each other as mothers, wives, and family situations. And that trip to Canada, we had really tiny little kids, like the first two kids were born kind of in the same years or similar, and so we were chasing children this whole week on this little island with all this rock, and the kids were knee high, and we had a wonderful time. It was just such a different thing, and it was, we were young, and I don't know that we talked about anything more sort of worldly significant than raising children, but really that is one of the big things that was important in our lives.
All right. Hi, Dick and Paul and Jen and Ginger and Beth. This is Kathy Bavek, and I've had the privilege of knowing the Reeds for a little over 6 years now. And so I kind of started in this journey of dementia with Laurie and Dick and the family, because I did get to know her before she started to fade away. And I'm so thankful for that, because I did get to know some of that grit and that tenacity that she had in life. And then I had the privilege, and I'm so thankful, Dick, I just want you to know how much that you reached out and you asked me to help in times of need when you needed somebody to come and care for her. Because it was my privilege to do that. It was a joy to be able to go and spend time with Laurie. And God really taught me a lot of things about myself through that, but also just I got to see her tenacity even in her illness as well. And I just really appreciate the opportunity. I wanted to let you know what a joy, because I still can remember sitting at your table there and opening up the Word of God with Laurie and she would be looking off or just not even really engaging with me. But I would open up my copy of scripture and I would start to read the word to her, and she would immediately look down at the Bible. And I used to say to her, that's right, Laurie, these are God's words. This is the word of God. Even in her dementia, she could still be reached with the word of God and encouraged. And another thing is, you would have the hymn book there. And so I would sing with her. And I loved singing with her. She didn't sing the words, but she would hum. And just, what a friend we have in Jesus. And she would hum right along with me. Or, how great thou art. Or she loved Amazing Grace. And we would do that over and over again, because I just felt like no matter what, even though I could serve her a meal, I could make sure she was drinking her water, I knew that I could at least minister to her even in her dementia, because God could reach her. And it was just my privilege to be able to do that and to spend those precious times with her and to serve you guys. And I love you guys. Know that you're going to be in my prayers and in my thoughts. And thank you also for your commitment to the word and to ministry and to reaching others with the good news of Jesus Christ. And I'm just privileged to be a part of your story as well. Love you guys. Amen.
Hi, I'm Joyce, and this has been my church for over 50 years. And actually, I've known Laurie more as her dementia deteriorated. My late husband also had dementia, so I was kind of used to dealing with people with some limitations, and I worked at Hillcrest Hospital for 15 years doing spiritual care. And a lot of times, I guess I want to talk somewhat more about Dick and what it means in the marriage ceremony, because I know they were married 54 years. My husband and I were married 57 years. And there is something in the marriage ceremony, most of the times the minister says it, in sickness and in health. And I want to talk about the great love of Laurie's family. Dick would bring her in, and as a couple years went by, he would have to guide her in. And I have a little bit of a walking problem, so I usually sit in the back. And he would bring Laurie over to me and say, here's your friend Joyce. And then there would be a little smile on her face. And I'm talking about our dinner and dialogue meetings. And the men would be in one group and the women in another. So we would all eat together, and then I would kind of be responsible with a great love of the responsibility of having Laura with me during the talking time. And we would talk about how has our last month been, and if we had issues, and this was a confidential group, so I'm not going to say a lot of what was said. We would all go around and say how it's been, and then we would come to Laura, and our leader of the group would say, well, Laura, how's your dog? And again, that little smile on her face. So I want to talk about, as I say, Dick, the great love. He would find her a seat, he would guide her towards the back, and she would sit there, and then after a while, in the probably last year, she would get sleepy and fall asleep, and then Dick would be happy that she was resting on his shoulder. And I said a lot of kudos to Paul and Jennifer and living in the house and taking care of her. I'm sure there are many, many things that other family members did that I'm just not as aware of. So, as I say, I knew Laurie more as she deteriorated, and it felt very comfortable to me because that's what I did. And I think that Doug will be fine. He will miss Laura terrible as I miss my husband terrible, but he has a lot of interest and a lot of things that he will now be able to pursue more. And maybe she and my husband are up in heaven talking together about the church down and our caregivers. And God bless Laurie and the whole Reed family.
James. I'm Barry DeWard, his wife Linda. And we've been members here since 1977. Mm-hmm. We were members here when Dick and Laurie first came. I don't remember what year that was. But she's always been very supportive of any ministry that's gone on here. Linda and I worked with Young Life, and Laurie was very encouraging and sometimes over encouraging. But we just known Laurie and Dick for a long time, and we're gonna miss her.
Many years ago, she had was it a New Year's Eve party?
Mm-hmm.
And we all, got together, and it was wonderful. I mean, we had a really good time, and then there was, I think it was in right around 2000. We were going through some things, and Laurie was very encouraging and wrote a very nice letter for me on my behalf, and that was a good memory.
Hi there, my name is Heather Corsten. I am the wife of the Reverend Pastor Roger Corsten, and I know Laurie by way of being called from California to Cleveland, Ohio, to Highland 6 Presbyterian Church, Amazing Grace Evangelical Presbyterian Church now. And I got to know Laurie in the women's small group Sunday school class and dinners that she invited us to her home with her hospitality gift. And she welcomed our 4 children into her home. Roger lived with Dick and Laurie from the last Sunday of November 2004 to January 25th, 2005, while myself and the 4 children continued to live in California and try to sell the house. So I appreciated Laurie's energy with the seasons, trying to get me out of my comfort zone of the winters of Ohio. So, and her biblical knowledge and love for the Lord. So, any words?
I enjoyed watching Laurie enjoy the birds when they were in Moreland Hills. All the bird feeders, which were outside, and just sitting there watching the birds with her, enjoying them, and having just wonderful times together. And again, just so grateful for the time that I got to spend with both Dick and Laurie at their house for those few weeks, all the hospitality and care that I received, and then also really enjoyed the New Year's Eve parties with the communion and the worship and everything that took place. I know many people got to enjoy that. I know Laurie loved doing that, so that was a great time as well. So definitely appreciated all the different experiences that got to have with Laurie. Miss her, and but so grateful that she was a part of our lives.
Hi, my name is Renetta Bond. Laurie was one of my very best friends. I met Laurie in 2004. Laurie left a legacy, I believe, for everyone who knew her. I am so blessed that I was also involved in her life when she had the dementia. Her son Paul used to call me therapy for Laurie. They continued to come and get me every Friday. And it was a wonderful feeling to know that they saw value in me as far as being Laurie's friend as well. And I remember when Laurie didn't know who I was. We were in Panera Bread, and she looked me. We were sitting at a table, just the 2 of us. She looked directly at me and she said, "I don't know who you are." And that hurt. My mother had dementia, so I would watch how people treated my mother once she didn't know who we were. People would talk as if she wasn't there. So I always addressed Laurie, even when she didn't know who I was. I always, addressed her Laurie, and I still talk to her the same way that I talked to her before the dementia. And I'm so glad that her family involved me in that journey. even though it was hard to see my friend debilitate. But I commend the family because of the treatment they gave her, they prolonged her life. We had my mother in a facility. She only lasted she only lasted a year and a half. They had music therapy for Laurie. They did all kind of things for her, and it prolonged her life. And I thank Paul for including me. It was 12 hours before she died. Paul's wife came and got me and included me with the music therapist. And I sang songs with them. And I held Laurie's hand, and it was ice cold. And I sang with her, and that's when I told her goodbye. And then 12 hours later, Jen said she died at 1:00 a.m. But she used to get so excited when she saw me. And they said sometimes she would be uncooperative, and then they said, "We want to see your friend Renata," and they said then she'd get real excited. But we had a beautiful friendship, and she just impacted and influenced my life. And I love her. I'm going to miss her, but I will see her again. But I have so many wonderful memories.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Reed, and I am Paul's wife and daughter-in-law to Laurie Reed for the last 5 years, and I've been her primary caregiver in her home, so that's where we've lived for that time. And it's been quite I guess the two words that seem to always come to mind is the challenge and the blessing. So there's many challenges, as anyone knows, with caregiving, and even just newly married and living with in-laws and all that goes along with that as well. And then of course the blessings too. There were just many. Laurie she was not a hard person to be around because she was so cheerful. She was healthy, energetic, walking all the time. I mean, just very, just easy, I would say an easy person to care for in the beginning, pretty much, it would seem like. I know some of the things I remember as I'm looking back is the time where we had to start putting the paper underwear on. And Dick always called them diapers, but I try to call them underwear, which is kind of a funny thing in itself. But we would, all of us would try different things, and we came up with something where we would hide them in the pants because she just did not want them on. And then as long as we would just say, oh, we're just, we want to be clean, we'd say words like that. And so if she knew that those were on, she'd try to rip them off. She just did not want those paper underwear on. And another thing that happened in the bathroom was a lot of times she would look like what are you doing in here? Like, you're in my space. So I would always try to respect her space, like knock on the door and think, but she still would be like, excuse me, I'd like to have my privacy. And here I am, like, I've got to be here to take care of you. So anyways, so that was just something I remembered. And we had a very unique situation because there were basically 3 of us involved in the caregiving. So there was Dick and Paul and I. So in a way, it was great. And what I would do just to remove myself from any aspect mentally is I would just go to coffee shops. It's usually what I would do to do my studies or any work that I had to do. But other than that, I would take her with me. Sometimes I would think I would be getting a break, and then I would just, this would be good for her. I need to get her out and shop. So we did a lot of shopping together, and she loved the idea of going into, pushing a cart. So I would sometimes just let her go in the store and into Target or whatever, and just like we'd push around the store. And a lot of times, I'd want to go this way, this aisle. Nope, she wanted to go down this aisle. And you're like, okay, well, let's see, what's my priorities? Do I have to get out of the store quickly and maneuver, or we'll just take some time and use this as an exercise? So it just depended on the day. Oh, well, one time she did, she would do it at the beginning, she would pick up some strange items. And sometimes I didn't know at first, like, should I let her buy it or not? Because she wanted that thing in the cart. So I'd be like, okay, we'll just keep it in. And one time she picked up this black dog. It wasn't even a black lab, which of course she loves her black labs. But it was like a little black Scottish terrier or something. And there it was like this ceramic thing. Okay, there it was in the cart. And okay, we'll get that. But those are, some really funny.
So did you get away on any mission trips?
Yes, that was actually something that we did do. So we would get, in a sense, like a respite like that, where I would go to India with Paul, like the once a year, and then his sister Beth would come and take care of her and help Dick with that. So that was really great. So it was a good time for Beth to be and to connect with her mom, and then they would do the Ravi conference together. So that was always something that they did, and then that was really nice. So.
Hi, I'm Valerie Vernon, and I'm here on behalf of myself and my sister, Laurie Jiho, because we had the privilege of meeting Laurie just about 3 years ago when Jen joined our Bible study. And we were so blessed in watching Jen take care of Laurie and just having her present with us a few times at Bible study, and we just would bump into her at the grocery store a lot. I don't know how, but that's kind of what we did. But I'm so thankful I was here today and to hear what the family said about her and to hear what her life was like before we knew her. And what a privilege to just hear that. So thank you for that, and God bless you all.
Hi, I'm Diane Carswell. I know Paul and Jen Reed through Kirtland Christian Fellowship, and it was there that they brought their mom during her time of convalescing. And Paul was ministering in my community, Painesville, and he just asked, while I'm at this high school, could you just please care for my mom for a couple hours? So I had the privilege and the honor of watching Laurie for a little bit. It was a beautiful fall day, one of the times, and she was a little anxious, as we know how dementia goes. And so I thought maybe we would go for a walk. Now, I had no idea that she was such a lover of the outdoors. So we went for a walk, and she just loved the colors, and we were picking up leaves. And she would say, I think we want to go back this way, because she was, of course, trying to get back home. And I said, I want to make her walk a little longer. I would say, maybe we could go just a little further. And she was certain of where she came from. That was very interesting. But we would snake our way home, and we got home, and she had a good workout, but she was very strong. And then the next thing we did was peel some apples and make some apple pie, and boy, did we laugh. We had such a good time. And that filled the couple of hours that Paul needed to go minister at Harvey High School. Another time, I noticed Jen and Paul after church just wanted a little bit of fellowship time. So I went and found a puzzle from the children's ministry area, and I sat Laurie down, and we were working on the puzzle, and I knew I was going to jab her. I was testing her. I said, with this last piece, boy, this is really difficult. Maybe we should ask a man to help us. She looked at me and she said, we certainly do not need a man to finish this. We can do this. We do not need a man. And those are my two vignettes that I can think of that I have in my mind about the kind of person Laurie was.
Hi, I'm Mariana Repke. We first met when Fellowship Bible Church was meeting at the American Society for Metals. And you had just moved into Green Ledge Farm, and I looked out one of the big picture windows, and there was Dick cross-country skiing to church. And we met and soon found that both Laurie and I rode horses, had passion for horses. We started riding together, and the first time that Laurie and I went out together, from a child, I was a pretty wild woman on a horse, and so we took her along, galloping and jumping fences, and what a trooper. I mean, on Luke, who I fortunately was a talented jumper. I don't think either he or Laurie had ever done anything quite like what we did, but Laurie loved it. And came back, and we continued to ride together, as you as a family know, for all the years. No longer ride, but we had great times together. And then the family, our children were the same age, and we had strong family times. We did mini church together. The Rose, the Reeds, and the Repkes were try of 3 tall husbands and kids all in the same age that were just, we have wonderful, wonderful memories and growth times, youth group activities, all those times together on up through weddings. Laurie and I did Fellowship Bible Church together. We go to leaders meeting on Monday, have lunch, go out and ride the horses, come back on Tuesday and do the regular funds, leading our small groups, and on back out on the horses. We did Christmas caroling together and taffy pulls, and just so many memories that Laurie and Dick and the kids all enriched our family's life so much, and just been so blessed to have you as part of our lives. And the memories will continue on, and I just thank you for who you are as a family and what you've meant to our family. It's been a fabulous ride together. So Lord bless you and keep you all. And I'm just so thankful that Laurie is now whole, having my mother and her mother before her. I have the dementia. I know that it is a real feeling of joy and peace when they are released from this earthly bondage and are free and restored. So I think of her today galloping across the fields of heaven, going whoopee, and jumping a few fences along the way.
My name is Karen Dangle. I'm part of Amazing Grace. I met Laurie when we were called Highland 6 Presbyterian Church. She was a wonderful person. I loved her dearly. But the thing that I remember most about her is she was my first very, very intense Bible teacher. I took a class in precepts, how to have joy regardless of your circumstances. And it was such a wonderful experience. And anytime she taught, I went to her classes. She was just so gifted in that respect. And I would just say that I don't think I would be where I am today in my spiritual walk if it wasn't for Laurie. And I can't wait to see her again.
All right, I'm Bert Smith with my wife Linda, my daughter Emily, and our son Nathan could not be with us today, but is here in spirit to be with the celebration for Laurie's life. And we've known Laurie, at least I have, since the day she and Dick got married. I was at their wedding, and they are a beautiful family. They have raised a wonderful family, and they showed the true love of a family and all the times that we were with them in terms of gatherings at Cook's Forest, gatherings with the Reed family all the time. The one story I have to share involves a horse. When I was in my 20s, I came up to Cleveland with my parents and one of my younger brothers, and Laurie coaxed me onto the horse for the first time. I did not like it. I rode it for a little bit. She rode beside me, thank God. And when she got off, I said, thank you, and I'll never do this again. But we will miss you always. We look forward to seeing you again upstairs. Take care.
And I'll just add that the one way that I know Laurie obviously is through marriage to Bert, but I feel like I had a pretty good idea of what kind of person she has always been through her Christmas letters that she sent every year. And I remember I'm the designated Christmas card opener in our family, and I would open all the cards and I would get to read the letters that came from a few people. I would read them first, and I always looked forward to her letter because it was just so awesome and so inspiring. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, how can she do all this? And it was just amazing. I always looked forward to seeing what else happened over the previous year. And then it was sad and very noticeable for me when they stopped coming. And I'll just always think of her as an absolutely amazing woman, as everyone has said today, and wishing that I had an opportunity to spend more time with her.
Okay. Hi, this is Ray Smith, here with my sister Laura Dunn now, and this is Heather Dunn, Laura's daughter. So neither Bruce nor Robin, your husband and your sister could make it today. Neither could Greg Smith nor Wes Smith, unfortunately. So we have known Laurie for as long as I can remember in my life. So I know she has laryngitis, so she's not going to talk, I don't think.
No, but I will say I was at their wedding.
Oh, good. So I can remember from way back knowing Ellen, which would be mother, grandmother, great-grandmother of you all. Wonderful times at her house, especially Christmas. And of course, my dad was Bert, her brother. And I can remember Dick always saying, Uncle Bert, call my dad Uncle Bert. And, my dad, Bert, and my mother, Mary Lou Smith, would have been happy to be here. They've passed away in the recent couple of years. So we remember things like holidays with Laurie and with the family, and wonderful times, right? And Cook Forest, hiking and the events there. And so we have some wonderful memories there. And, we love Laurie, we love the family, and we felt that love from all of you. And that's why we're here.
Hi, I'm Bill Repke. I bet you remember, because the Reeds, the Rose, and the Repkes were the triumvirate, the three musketeer families or whatever, for 15 to 20 years, I think. And I remember wonderful times like all getting together, and the kids would all go down to the Triangle in Chagrin and take goofy pictures. And Paul would always have his Joker's hat and his different ones and so forth. But Laurie spawned a spontaneity and an enthusiasm. And what I specifically remember was when we did youth group together, overseeing it, one of the places we went was to Holiday Sands down toward Ravenna. And it was an outdated park with a lake and a rickety old 50-foot steel slide that I'm not sure I would have gone up, except Laurie immediately clambered up the ladder and slid down and got all the kids started doing it. And so what really would have been a dud was greeted enthusiastically by the kids because of her enthusiasm for the physicality of being involved in things, not just the sitting back and talking about it, but the getting involved. And I think that pretty well sums it up. The joy of her and Mariana riding together was a key spine of their existence for so many years. And then I wanted to talk politics, local politics with Laurie. And so she said, well, why don't we take a ride? So she took me on a ride, and I think she was smirking the whole time, knowing that my body was going to be a whole lot different the day after this 2-hour adventure. And surely it was, because it was a lot of muscles that I don't normally use. But we had a really meaningful talk about how to serve your local community and how to be open in government to learning and listening and compromising, which is a big element of why I think I ultimately enjoyed it so much, was those kinds of discussions. So thank you, Laurie. Thank you for the Reed's friendship all these years, and thank you for the fact that Ginger still remembers so many of my Sunday school lessons. I'm more than impressed. Thanks. God be with you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Laura Waldenmeyer. I met Laurie in 2001 when I was Laura Verasco, right before I got married. And my husband and I were both at Ashland Theological Seminary, and I was looking for a place where I could do a pre-practicum or practicum. And Laurie very generously had me come in for an interview, and I eventually was hired there, and She saw me through my counseling degree and became a counseling supervisor and really was a mentor to me. And not only that, she took an interest in my personal life and my husband's dreams and passions and goals as well. He had a heart for apologetics, and she was, being Ravi Zacharias International Ministries, she encouraged us to apply for a program at Oxford, which he did, and he got in, and we lived there for 5 years. So when I think of Laurie and her energy and her sing-songy voice, I have a fond little nickname for her, which might sound unspiritual, but to me it isn't. I hope you get it. I think of her as my fairy godmother because it was like she made all my wishes come true and made me believe that dreams can come true and just encourage our passions and goals. So she changed my life and my husband's life, and our daughter was born in England, so we had 5 wonderful years there. And now I'm working in private practice as I always dreamed I would with a group of Christian ladies. She also told me at my daughter's baby shower that I should take care of myself and make sure I keep my dreams alive and take interest in my hobbies even when I'm a busy mom. So I am continuing that. I share a love of horses, and combining that with counseling, we've just started a new business called TLC with Horses, Therapy and Learning Center with Horses. So her legacy lives on in so many people, and I'm so grateful for her encouragement and mentorship and her spiritual guidance. And yeah, I'm so grateful to have known her, and God bless your whole family. We just cherish you all so much. God bless. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashley Bond. I've known Laurie since I was about 12 years old. She was my mother's Christian counselor first, and then she was my Christian counselor starting when I was about 12. And I saw the relationship that had started to bud between Laurie and my mother, and I just kind of watched to see just how close they had gotten and how great of a person Laurie really was. And that's when she started to impact my life, and she turned into a friend to me too. I remember times when my mom would have to go out of town and Laurie would volunteer to watch me, and we would sit out on the back patio of the Reed home and we would just watch birds, because she was the first person to really teach me about how beautiful nature is and just how overwhelming it can be to be surrounded just by life other than other human beings, like the trees and the leaves and the birds and the animals. And it was an experience I really appreciated because it just taught me to really just look at what's around you and to see what God has made for us to enjoy other than, otherworldly things. So Laurie was generous and kind and sweet to my mother and I for years, and we're really gonna miss her, and I'll always love her.
Hi, my name is Bridget Baumgartner. I first met Laurie when I was in my youth at a youth group at Fellowship Bible Church. I knew her son, and I knew Mr. and Mrs. Reed when I was a kid. It wasn't until maybe later in my life after undergraduate school that I was considering going into graduate school, and Laurie encouraged me to consider going to seminary and going, just praying. She encouraged me to be courageous and bold in my prayers about what to do next. In the conversation I had with her, she really truly encouraged me to seek the Lord's calling, not chase after things, but really to be present and still and listen to the Lord's calling on my life. And I viewed her very much as a strong mentor, but just with a gentle piece of Christ. And she was such a supporter, encourager. And she kept tabs with me when I was in seminary. I went on to be a psychotherapist, and I worked at the clinic for 15 years. And she would, if I would see her occasionally, or Mr. Reed, they were just very encouraging and supporting people. All I can say, so much of that, her presence has encouraged me to pursue a calling in my life that has changed the lives of other people. So for the glory of God, by a conversation she had with me, I was able to be an impetus of change and help other people too. So
I extend to all of you my condolences. She was just a lovely woman, and I love you all so very much.
Hi, my name is Jan Hairston, and I met Laurie here at church. We joined the church here, I want to say around 2001, 2002, and didn't really know a lot of folks here. I did have the opportunity to sit in on a Bible study group that Laurie was doing, and I remember just being so impressed with her knowledge of Scripture and just the way that she talked about God and her relationship with Him. And I just was very appreciative of her knowledge and just what she was able to help me to understand in my own faith walk. The other thing is that I'm also a counselor, and so when I found out that Laurie was a counselor, we had an opportunity to talk a little bit about that whole profession. And I worked with people who are severely mentally ill and addicted and homeless, and it's a tough population. And so just having somebody that kind of has the experience of knowing how difficult counseling can be sometimes was helpful. And it was just really, really great today to hear about some of the lives that she had impacted through her counseling experience. And that kind of touched me in a special way because, a lot of times as a counselor, you don't get to see what you're doing in someone's life at the time that you're doing it. And so when you can hear about it afterwards, that's a really special thing. And I missed a lot of the last year in church because I was in the hospital with my own health issues. But one of the stories that I really, really will always remember was recently when she was at church, and they had come in a little after we arrived, and Dick was helping her to a seat. And when it came to the part in the service where you stand up and you shake hands with other folks nearby, she turned around and she saw my son. And her face just lit up, like she automatically recognized who he was. And he said hi, and she grabbed his hand, and she just was holding his hand and just smiling at him. And I'll never forget that because to me it just really felt like she felt his spirit, because he very much loves the Lord too. So it was just a special moment, and I will always remember that, and I will always remember her as a very special person. And I also want to say to you, Dick, it was just such a blessing to watch how you handled Laurie and worked with her during this last time of her life. And it really showed me not only the love of God, but the love that a man has for his wife. And that was just really special. So thank you. And always remember that Laurie was just such a wonderful person. Thank you.
All right. Well, we are Laurie's grandchildren. Ginger's children, Reed,
Katie, and Andrew.
And just wanted to share some reminiscences of our grandmother, who we've obviously known our entire lives. Do you want to start?
Yeah, so I'll start. My best memories of Grandma are definitely from Thanksgiving because she would always have 300 activities planned, and always watching her working around in the kitchen. She loved to make her cranberry sauce and make sure everything was tasting yummy and homemade. So I just loved how active she was in that community.
Sure. Jumping on the Thanksgiving track, we were just saying one of the things that she always arranged that I recall very fondly, they used to get pumpkins. And she would buy all of these pumpkins. She might have grown some of the pumpkins too. And they would be by the front door from beginning of fall or Halloween, and then the pumpkins would start to decay a little bit by the time Thanksgiving came around. And so Grandma had the great idea that we should roll all the pumpkins down the hill and then chase them down into the gulch, where I think we all very fondly remember going on long hikes with Grandma, where we would go down and she would point out all the birds. We would follow the old train track, cross back and forth over the river. And she loved hiking. I mean, it always astounds me that even in these final years, as everything else has kind of deteriorated, she kept on going faster than Grandpa could ever keep up. So they had to go to the rookery where the paths were straight, because she would just walk ahead with the dog and he would trail behind, and then eventually she'd pause at a sign and he'd be able to catch up. But yeah, we have all sorts of fond memories of hiking, behind the house, together in Kiowa, in Australia. She did the Milford Trek with my parents, just loved to hike everywhere. We did Costa Rica together. And again, wherever we would go, hiking with Grandma was always such a joy because her naturalistic knowledge was encyclopedic. You could point to any bird that you saw and she'd have the name and identification and something interesting about it. Local history and color in an area.
Yeah, I think something that really stands out about Laurie that I'll always remember is her enthusiasm and her passion that she brought to everything, whether it was adventuring through the Milford Track, Australia, we went to Costa Rica with her, ziplining through the jungle, to also academics and working hard, learning a ton. All of her daughters and son, they all went on to pursue higher academics. They all learned so much, and it's something that I've been blessed to grow up around me. And it's amazing to see the family and the success and the passion that everyone has in this family. And I think it really, truly, a lot of that is dedicated to the hard work and perseverance that Laurie has had. And it shined through today when we were hearing the stories of all the people from different walks of life who really have been touched by her because she was willing to go out and put them in front of her. And I think that that's something that stands out about Laurie. And she is just, and it was just an incredible woman and will be missed forever.
And just one other little bit of color that I remembered we were talking about outside. We were reminiscing over the story of how back in the house at Moreland Hills, given all of her adventuring up in the attic was full of adventure gear, and she would occasionally send us up, and we would go make forts in the tents and pull out all of the different sleeping bags and objects and play in the materiality of her loves and passions embodied there in that house. So, as her grandchildren, we love our grandmother, and we'll miss her sorely, but look forward to the day when we'll see her again.
Hello, my name is Rose Reed. Laurie is my aunt. And then Shane.
Hi, I'm Shane Segrist. I'm engaged to Rose Reed, so I guess she's my aunt too.
My favorite memory of Laurie would be going to the island up in Canada. She would love that island so much, and I was actually able to share that memory with Shane here. A few years back, we all went together.
Yeah, the island, it was really nice. I loved it, and I loved being with family, especially Aunt Laurie. She really made it special.
You could tell that was her getaway. She loved the island. In between kayaking to, she drove that boat till the last day she possibly could.
I remember the boat ride.
Even if it was the bumpiest ride ever.
It was a little wicked, but it was fun.
She would not let anybody else drive. She did not want Uncle Dick drive, and that was her boat, her island, and she was driving, and you held on. But that's probably my favorite memory of her, is going there to that special getaway place with her.
My name is Marilyn Watts. I'm Laurie's cousin on her mother's side, and I grew up with Laurie and spent many Thanksgiving and Christmas and other times with her and her family. And it was great knowing her then, but then I went up to California, and fortunately they came out to California for 3 years, so it was wonderful seeing them then. And I would always see them when I came to visit my parents, but then my dad had died and my mom had dementia, and Laurie and Dick took me in whenever I'd visit, and we just had great times and did little hikes and loved the nature that they love. And so I've come back to celebrate her life because it was wonderful.
Hi, my name is Sue Eldridge, and this is my sister Nan Dilworth, and I've known Laurie about 57 years. I met her when I went to visit my brother Dick at Cornell, and he had a new girlfriend, and that was Laurie. And one of the things I remember about Laurie, we talked a lot today about her love of learning and sharing and teaching, and I remember when she came to visit us at our house in Pound Ridge in New York, and we had just moved there, and she didn't bring me a new pie plate or coffee cups, although she has given me those things over the year, but she brought me a book of trees of the Northeast. And then she took me out in the yard and she taught me. She said, this tree is, and she showed me what all the different trees and shrubs in my yard were so that I would have a start to understand what I had in my yard. And so that was something of Laurie. But then I'd like to just say something to the whole family of Laurie, to Dick and all his children and grandchildren, that we remember that book, It Takes a Village to Raise a Child. Well, it really took that whole family to help Laurie at the end of her life. It took all of you. It took Dick and all the children, not just one or two, but all of you to help with your special gifts. And I just think Laurie was so blessed to have you, because she had such wonderful quality of life at the end of her life. And she was still able to do and be part of things around her. And I just want to thank all of you.
I'll say again, my name is Nancy Reed Dilworth, Aunt Nan to a lot of people. And I've known Laurie, over 50 years. And I remember when Dick told us that the Semple family was inviting us to their home for a meal in Shaker Heights, Cleveland, and we lived in Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania. And we all got dressed up and went up for the meal and had a chance to meet this special girl and liked her very much. She was very vivacious and friendly and liked her family. And when I think of Laurie, I think of someone who was just so full of life. And there wasn't anything that we couldn't tackle. If something came up that we needed to do wherever we were, and she was visiting and we would mention something and she said, we could do that, we'll take care of that. And we'd figure out a way to do it. And the other thing I remember is Sue said, oh, now I'm going to draw one of those old people blanks. I'm sorry. Let me think a minute. About nature books, our home that we're in now in Gig Harbor, Washington, is probably our last home. And when Laurie came to see it for the first time a few years ago, about, I guess, 7 or so, what'd she bring? A book about birds and the birds that we were going to see. So that's something that she cared about all her life, and it was something that we had in common because my family cared about identifying things too and had fun doing it. So that's a very special memory to me. But we loved Laurie, and she was just such a special person, as so many people have said the same, I know, but feel it from the heart.
All right, hi, cousin Laura. Laurie was my aunt, my mom's sister-in-law. I'm Sue's daughter. I don't remember the first time I met Aunt Laurie. She was always a part of my childhood. Our families would see each other frequently. We didn't live close, but we would travel and see each other in that process. Aunt Laurie, I always loved going to her house because I knew we were always going to have days full of fun activities, and we were always going to get to try new things, and she was always encouraging of that. The first time I ever rode on a horse was at Aunt Laurie's house, and it was something that I always looked forward to. I knew how much fun that would be. Some of my favorite memories of Aunt Laurie involve going with her up to the island in Canada, and even just being back in Cleveland, the house outside Cleveland with her. My mom, I think about this now, and now that I'm a mom, it's amazing. My mom would send me for 2 or 3 weeks to Aunt Laurie, and that was something that she was willing to do, and she'd take me up to Canada. The only time I've ever been to Niagara Falls, I went with Aunt Laurie. And I remember especially the first time I went to the island, I think the first few days, Aunt Nan and Uncle Ray and Cousin Rachel and Uncle Dick and Cousin Ginger, a lot of people were up there. And then they left, and there were 4 days or something left where it was just Aunt Laurie and me. And I remember it was such a nice time. Again, she always knew how to fill those days. I remember all the sort of fun parts of that. We'd go boating or walking or swimming or fishing or this or that, and she never let you there was always something going on, and it was just tremendous fun. And I remember she was somebody, she could be tough with you at times, but then she could also be capable of being amazingly kind in the right moment. In the right moment, she would say something that made you feel so good when you really needed it, or do something, there'd be a gesture that was just so welcome and so unexpectedly kind in certain moments in ways that were so helpful. She has been missed already, and she will continue to be missed, but there are so many things that will make me think of her. Going on new adventures, like having days that are filled with fun and new things will always make me think a little bit about Aunt Laurie, because that's the kind of person that she was. And that was something that she always took such joy in sharing. And she was someone also, I guess, who was committed to family, and I think that's evidenced by everybody who's here, by this incredible group of people who've come together to remember her and to share all these moments with her. So she'll be missed, and she is and will be very loved.
My name is Marianne Nichter. Laurie is my niece. Her father and I were brother and sister. He was 9 years older than me. So we enjoyed many pleasures together, especially after my father bought the island. The island was my father's dream. He said it was, to him, a place of heaven. And he, unfortunately, didn't enjoy it very long. He had the late summer and fall that they bought the island, and the next year they went up the end of June, and he passed away up there on August 4th. The island was special, and we all enjoyed it so much. And I know Laurie enjoyed it in swimming and fishing, and it was just a retreat. And my dad liked it because there was no telephone and no television, and it was just the good Lord in peace and quiet. I know Laurie enjoyed it also, and just she had her wish, and now she's enjoying another. And give her the very best. I thank you.
That's it. Okay, now can I say something? Hi, I'm Barb Semple, and my husband is Laurie's cousin, and I just want to share real quick just one recent memory of being with Laurie up at the cottage. And we were sitting by the fireplace on a cold morning, and I was adjusting her little sweater for her, and she said, "Mind your own business." And I was really wounded. But of course she didn't know what she was saying. But anyway, I held it against her for about the whole day. And then I was the one who was going to put her to bed that night. So when I put her to bed, I tucked her in. I said, "Now, are y'all comfortable?" And she looked up at me and she said, "I love you." And so it was all right then. So that's my little memory, and I hope you guys, all you young people, really remember that, because that's one of my last really cognizant memories with her. Thanks. Love you all.
Hi, my name is Howard Morgan, and Laurie was my mother-in-law. I'm here because I married Laurie's wonderful daughter, Ginger, and it is far from the first time that I've been in Cleveland. My first year, I traveled here. Ahead of Ginger, was greeted at the airport by Laurie, and that began a series of many travels and adventures. The theme that I'd like to bring up, was brought up earlier today, is the adventurous spirit that Laurie had. We traveled to New Zealand to Australia, to Latin America. We hiked. We seemed to risk our lives. We faced off bulls and hang off of mountains with ropes. We certainly adventured up in Canada. I remember clearly the last trip in the boats with Laurie that I took. I think there were probably signs already that some of her capacities were slipping, but she so wanted to be sure that we could find our own way to the island. And it's that thought, the memories of her providing guidance and leadership, but bringing us and participating with us in great adventures, and she's now in one of the great adventures of eternity. Certainly loved Laurie, very thoughtful, very grateful that she brought Ginger for me, and love the whole family. So thank you, Laurie. You'll be in our prayers forever. Amen.
Hi, I'm Julie Wilson, and Aunt Laurie was very special to me. She was my teacher. I learned to ride horses with her. I learned to water ski. I learned to ski, and she was a great inspiration to me, and I miss her very much. And will always think fondly of her and had all the special times we had up at the island. So.
Hi, I'm Judy Vogt, and Laurie, you have always been a joy for me in my 50 years in this family. It was a very welcoming family to me, and I appreciated that so much. I've loved the holiday gatherings and your Thanksgivings and Christmas. I loved being at the island with you and all of that fun. You have been a joy to my life, and I am so very sorry you are gone. God bless.
Hi, my name is Cliff Vogt. Laurie, I love you. I miss you. And I remember all the great times we used to have and how good you were to have us to your place, and you came to ours, and we did all these nice things together. And the thing I remember also, in 1946, I have to confess, I took some of your candy out of your Easter basket. Hope you'll forgive me.
Hi, my name is Steve Semple. Laurie and I are first cousins. My dad is Laurie's dad's older brother, and they owned a cottage in Canada. And I had been going up to the cottage for about 35 years before my aunt sold her interest, because she was third owner, to Laurie's dad. And I thought, uh-oh, 35 years, up here every summer since I was 6 months old. I'm about to lose that opportunity. But Laurie being Laurie called and said, your son's almost exact same age as my son. Why don't you bring him up why don't you let him come up for 2 weeks with my son, and then you come and pick him up and take him home? I said, that'd be great. And so we went up, we picked them up. My wife and Laurie had kindred spirits about God and the Word, as do I. But I was always out fishing. So they hit off a relationship, and since then, every May, just about, for the last roughly 30 years, from when she first invited my son to come up, we've been going up every year. And not going up with, oh, you need to pay for this or you need to pay for that. Just, oh no, it's yours, just use it. And what a blessing. And to know that, I don't think it was such a blessing to her, although she loved talking to my wife, and Dick and I got along great, but she knew it was a blessing to me. Because of that, she let it continue. So, again, like others have said, not looking for what she could get out of it, but looking for what she could do for someone else. And so we were blessed to know her. Thank you.